Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I will now call the April meeting of the Portsmouth Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Task Force to order. Thank you all for being here tonight. Let's start with a attendance, and I'll start by asking everyone to state their name, and I'll go first. Jalen Drury.
Keith Rice. Oh, Eugene Swenson. I thought you had to go first.
Sarah Ray. Leticia Sessoms.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, I will ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the March 3rd meeting.
Motion.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. And I will entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda. Do we have a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. It's not that many of us here, so. All right, thank you. We'll start by, actually, before we get started with the agenda items, I want to start by saying thank you all for being flexible with moving this month's meeting. Earlier this month, we had scheduling conflicts with the space due to city council meetings, but also last week was Peace Week and Holy Week, so we wanted to make sure that we was observing both of those important things last week, so thank you for your flexibility. I want to also start by acknowledging over the past month there's been a number of violence that have taken place throughout our city since we met last, and I do think it's important to acknowledge that when we come into this space, as the work that we're doing is really important, impacting those affected by the violence that take place in our hometown. And the last thing I'll note is that personally, just this weekend, there was a number of violence that took place across the water at Norfolk State that affected and impacted members of my community and also my fraternity on campus. And so I just wanted to acknowledge them and say that our hearts are with them as well today. So with that, I will go ahead and begin, and I'll pass it to Ms. Matthews to talk about Portsmouth United and provide updates for the police department.
Yes. So Chief Jenkins will be providing an update for the police department, but I will be providing the Portsmouth United update over here near the computer. So last week we were able to host Peace Week, and I want to start my update off with a video documenting all the amazing things that happened last week. Let's hope it works. Let's see.
Peace Week 2025 in Portsmouth was more than just a calendar of events. It was a movement, a celebration of community, and a powerful reminder that peace begins with opportunity. From April 11th to April 20th, our city united to create something truly meaningful for our youth, and we did it together. Peace Week was a success, not just because of the number of events held, but because of the lives we touched, the youth we empowered, and the connections we built across the city. From leadership retreats to fitness camps, from paint and sip sessions, Peace Week delivered experiences that spoke to the heart, mind, and soul of every young person involved. Let's take a look back at some of the incredible highlights.
I wonder what happened with the sound. I'm not sure what happened. Let's see if it'll pick back up.
You do the voiceover?
I was about to say that.
She did.
We're out here part of the Peace Week. Safety Town has been here for 50 years, and we've got an open house today.
See Bruce come through.
April the 15th, and we've got open house April the 17th from 10 to 2. But we're just having free, fun activities for all the kids that are in the local area to do. We've got horses, we've got bicycles, we've got basketball, we've got chalk art, we've got golf, Identikid. So we're just here for a free activity for the kids to enjoy while they're on spring break.
The entire city came together to give our youth one clear message. You matter. You are supported. And your future is worth investing in. As Peace Week comes to a close, we want to say thank you to every partner, parent, mentor, volunteer, and youth who showed up and showed out. This week was about empowering the next generation. And based on what we saw, the future of Portsmouth is bright, bold, and peaceful. Follow us online to see more highlights and to stay involved. Peace doesn't end here. It continues with you.
Yay!
Okay, good job.
I'm very excited about that. And the work that happened last week, it was a collaborative, I'm gonna click out of here. It was a collaborative effort for sure. And we had over 20 of our organizations that we partner with through Portsmouth United, hosting events all over the city. Some you got to see highlighted. There were others we'll see in another recap because it was so much happened last week. There's more to add to that video. And we had a pretty quiet week, and Chief could correct me if I'm wrong.
Don't say quiet.
Oh. It's over with now. The week's done.
It was peaceful.
It was peaceful. We had a very peaceful week.
There you go.
There we go. I used that word. We had a
Yes,
peaceful
yes.
week. And I'm just very proud of those efforts. And we're going to continue to grow the efforts that we kind of kick-started last week. Looking forward to the summer, figuring out some ways we can have some coalition building for the summer, make sure there's activities and programs, events. And I think the one thing that we will be working out is making sure we have events happening in the Churchland area. We didn't have a lot happening in the area this past week. And then also offering some things for our adults as well. So we're working some of those things out. But I do want to shout out a couple people. Eugene, we were in the thick of it last week. He helped with Peace Fest, helping get those things coordinated, keeping everybody on track. Miss Sessoms hosted the autism camp and was just a great resource throughout the week. We did have some stabilizations we were working with last week. Even though it was all Peace Week for everyone else, we were still in knee-deep with stabilizations, and we were kind of shoulder to shoulder last week getting a couple families stabilized, even though we all had all these other pieces moving. So thank you. So yes, any questions about Peace Week before I move forward to our other updates?
I'll just mention that there was a lot of positive feedback about last week across social media, but also over the weekend, a lot of folks had told me that last week was great. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how that can grow, not just it being a week, but continuing to do these type of large scale initiatives across the city going forward. So thank you all for that.
Yes. Thank you. So other updates from Portsmouth United, our grant cycle for fiscal year 26 is kicking off May 1st. That application will be live May 1st through May 15th. It is a tiered system. Our tier 1 is our growing organizations. They may have, not filed they may have never filed taxes. They may be just getting kick-started, but they have all their paperwork to prove their 501c3, and they have some strong letters of recommendation. Those organizations are going to cap at 25. So they can ask for less, but that is the cap of where we'll be funding for those folks in that tier. Tier 2, we're calling it our emerging organizations. They may have filed the simple form that I think is called the 990
Easy.
N or easy for nonprofits. They will cap at 50K, and then our thriving organizations will cap at 100K. These are organizations that have filed a full 990 and can present that documentation. So that goes live May 1st. It'll be fully marketed. We're expecting an influx of applications. I do want to shout you out, Jalen, for serving on. We had a small committee come together and really just iron out the details of how this would look. And Jalen served on that committee, so thank you for being there. And we had a good conversation too. It was a good time, even though we're working. It was a good time. And other update involves. Oh wow, it just left me. The other update involves our violence interruption program. So we are growing that program. We are hiring 6 additional violence interrupters. And within that, we've been interviewing folks. We have a committee. Ms. Sessoms and Mr. Swenson have served on that interview panel as well. So the Crime Commission is getting woven into the things that are already happening in the city, and that's been great. Thanks for serving on that committee. Y'all's feedback has been, just top tier. Y'all both have a different lens. Ms. Sessoms, she's the person who asked the reporting question. Can you report out on what you do? And she said, we're going to do a writing sample. So before we start the hiring situation, Ms. Sessom's recommendation was to do a little writing sample, and then we'll also have some training for our violence interrupters as well, because we do want to make sure we're documenting the success of the program. Any questions about those other 2 pieces? Okay, I'm excited for what's happening with Portsmouth United. It is certainly a collective effort. I'll shout out Chief Jenkins for his continued support and his continued expertise. He has a really good lens on what CVI is, and I always go to him with questions and wanting his feedback, and yeah, we're good to go. I'm excited about what's coming up.
How you doing?
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
So the 6 new hires, how many violence interrupters have we fielded, or are we fielding?
So we are interviewed. Well, to date, we have our last 2 interviews tomorrow. So to date, we've interviewed 8, and 3. We have 3 interviews tomorrow, and that's our last round of interviews before we start making decisions. Because we have a really good group of folks that have interviewed, and I think training is going to be really important. We plan to do an immersive. And one of the major cities that have this program up and running, where they will go see how the violence interruption program works in a city that has been very successful, where their funding is supported because of their documentation and because of their system, because of how it's working. And it'll go hand in hand with some of the things that's happening with the police department, which hopefully Chief Jenkins will talk about some of the things we have, the technology we have to track incidents and where they're happening and when. So, yeah, we're just going to be good.
How many violence interrupters are we aiming for?
A total of 8.
8.
A total of 8.
Just a quick follow-up. Is there a specific date that you all are expected to fill all of those roles?
My goal is to know who we're going to be moving forward with by May 1st, before the grant application goes live.
Okay.
We do have to do like some initial, we know that everyone who applied will not have a squeaky clean background. We don't expect that, but we are looking for specific things. So after we go through that kind of phase, we'll be able to get an agreement down so that they can sign it and start training and things like that. We are going to be working with Mr. Marcus McAllister. We put out for quick quote pretty much. And he came back with the best number, and he's really he's worked with Cities United. He worked with Cities United when they were first coming up. So he's going to be doing some of our initial training for us, and he was able to give us like a good quote and good discount. So he really just wants to come down here to train. So he'll be doing that initial training, and then phase 2 will be the immersive. So training is going to be key to the success of the program, and of course, things have to be tailored for our city, so they'll go do an immersive. Haven't decided where. I'm thinking it'll either be in like New York or St. Louis. It's kind of my top 2. But we're going to tailor that program to what we need in our city, but also see what's been successful in other cities.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Matthews? All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I know we said off the top we would defer our crime update to the next meeting, but we have our chief here, and we will ask for our chief to provide an update on the crime numbers here in the city of Portsmouth.
All right. Just bear with me 1 second, please.
Absolutely.
While this, good evening, everybody. While this comes up and everything gets logged in, so reminder, Chiefs Forum. So this will be an overview of Chiefs Forum. Some of the same information that will be put out, but there will be some additional details that I will be adding. So one of the things I think will be helpful for me to kind of highlight as we talk about violence interruption and what this looks like. There is a couple of recent news articles or news stories that have been written across the country, and one of which I'm going to show you that's out of Baltimore. And obviously a city that has been similar to Portsmouth, just larger, but it's been dealing with similar issues, but has kind of embraced the whole CVI model. And so obviously there are going to be times when we talk about CVI and we talk about individuals that are violence interrupters or credible messengers. Sometimes you'll say, well, we see them in areas that, you know, are less than savory, or hanging with people that's less than savory, or whatever you want to call it. But again, that's what we're paying those individuals to do. We're paying them to interact with gang members. We're paying them to interact with the shooters. We're paying them to deter the crime. And so when you start talking about the measurables of what that looks like, the absence of situations happening or is how you actually measure it. Will we ever be able to say that if Jalen Drury was a violence interrupter, that he stopped this particular crime from happening? That's hard to wrap your mind around. What you can say, if you have an active violence interrupter in a particular area, then and that person is working to navigate the violence, then the absence of violence, that means you have an active in a person that's there working. So that's one of the videos that we're actually going to talk about.
I have it on my list of announcements.
Okay. Matthews, I know I just sent this thing to you.
You did. You talking about the video link?
Now, what I was looking for is what I just sent to you. There you go.
Oh, okay, I got
pull
you.
that up first and then go back to.
Okay,
So-
I'm re-forward it to you. Let's see.
All right, so today we're going to be discussing our crime numbers for the first quarter. That will be January 1 until March 31st. we'll go, as we talked about, putting together a dashboard for not only for our citizens to be able to interact with as it relates to gun-related crime, but then also be able to, in real time, be able to pull numbers as it relates to that. Additionally, as a result of this dashboard, we've also started to put some thought processes around building a mental health dashboard and what that looks like, so we can really dive into how much time we're spending, the disposition of some of these situations that come, whether or not it be a person's referred to the hospital on a ECO or a detention order, of whether they're provided services. One of the gaps that we're finding as well is that in our Marcus alert, the tiered process, the first step of that process is the 988 referral. So one of the things that we're finding out is if they're referred to 988 or if they call 988 and that clinician is the first person to respond, sometimes they respond to our area and they don't let us know. Okay, so that, again, when you talk about HIPAA, and trust me, I understand, but if you have a person that's suffering from a mental health potential crisis, it would be a good idea to just kind of say, hey, we're coming to your city, we're going to be at this address. So if it does hit the fan, we know where to go. All right. We're going to talk about our accreditation update, which we have our person on the ground right now dealing with that. Our service level agreement, one of the things that we've been working on, our 2025 departmental goals, and then I'll take question and answer. All right, so our numbers first quarter, what you will see is at the end, there is for the first quarter, we had a increase of 7.91% total violent crime. Now, some of our drivers obviously were brandishing, and when you look at victims versus incidents, those individual things that so far as so if you have a series of cars that get broken into on a particular street, they're labeled as one particular incident, even though you have multiple victims. Anything that is considered a violent crime that's associated with an individual so far as a homicide, that is, they are categorized by the person. So each one of those counts as a person and not an incident. So just so you'll understand. So you also look at, we've had a uptick in our aggravated assaults. So the vast majority of those can be attributed to domestic related incidents. And understand, when you talk about an aggravated assault, you're talking about anytime the skin is broken. So whether it be a person gets hit with a bat, there's a serious gouge or a stabbing, not just a gunshot wound. Any type of violent act where there's a breaking of the skin is categorized as a aggravated assault. And then the shooting into occupied dwellings, vehicles is all. But obviously the most significant for us, the one that always gets the most notoriety, is right now we have a 69% decrease in homicides year to date. And so obviously that is, when we compare those numbers, first quarter, we were at 11 homicides for the first quarter versus 4. And so again, something for us to be proud of as we continue to work on this issue. As we relate to our property crimes, we have a 19% reduction in property crimes. Theft of motor vehicle parts, license plates continues to be an issue, which is problematic for us, obviously, and we relate a lot of that to the increases of ton of tolls, the individuals not being able to register their vehicles, and then of course shoplifting. Shoplifting continues to be one of our issues that we tackle quite a bit as it relates to our merchants, and we partner with them to kind of try to come up with some preventive measures, whether it be crime prevention by design, moving your more expensive items back towards the rear of the store, and your less attractive items up front. You'll notice that unfortunately some of our larger retailers, Walmart, ABC, they've now gone to counter store and also locked up a lot of their items. But when you have a $4 million shrinkage, you have to do something. So year to date, as we compare both of those, first quarter, we would be at a 15% reduction in overall crime. As we look going on to our year to date, we're a little bit better. We're at 18%, and that is as of the 19th. So we try to track, give you real-time numbers so that you would look at. So we're tracking. Our goal for the year was a 10% reduction in violent crime, a 20% reduction in overall crime. So we're coming close to being able to hit our mark. So this firearm-related dashboard that we talked about a couple of months ago. So right now there are only 13 of these related to these in the country that actually track violence, their gun violence as it relates to where they're happening, time of day, and things of that nature. Portsmouth would be the 14th in the country that will have this type of information. And so one of the things I thought was important, and the video will highlight it, is we talk about areas that are challenges for us that have had some success with not having any gunshot wounds or not having any violence, but nobody ever touts those accomplishments. So you'll notice that on this side, that each neighborhood, you'll be able to look and see how many days it's been since you've had a gun-related crime in that particular area. You'll also be able to look and see how many gun-related crimes you've had in that area, and time of day, neighborhoods, things of that nature. So again, when we talk about information that we want our violence interrupters to know, this is where they should live. You want to know where they need to be. They need to be in these particular areas and things of that nature. So again, for us, this will be good information for us to be able to put out. This is the second part of that front-facing dashboard. Again, citizens will be able to go in and just kind of see our numbers real time. So one of the things that people often either get in trouble for or think that somehow we go in and, statistics, right? If I add this day or take this day off, I can skew the numbers and things of that nature, okay? One of the things that gets chiefs and others in trouble more than anything is playing with the numbers, right? This right here pulls directly from our CAD system, all right? So and this is part of the disclaimer, is that this information is dynamic, which means we'll get, if a person takes a report today, that report may be categorized as a robbery. Let's say it's a gunshot wound, okay? And it gets categorized as a gunshot wound, and later that person dies. When that report gets updated, it's now considered a homicide. So it changes your numbers, and these things happen. Sometimes they close. Sometimes we'll have a person say, oh, somebody shot me, and then we find out that they shot themselves, which happens quite a bit. So now that gunshot wound turns into unfounded because it didn't happen in that particular manner. But this information, we don't enter this information in that particular manner. This is hooked directly to our CAD system, and so it pulls and generates every single day. Now, obviously, it is really dependent upon the people to enter that information in correctly the first time. Bad data in, bad data out. So we're constantly always in a audit phase to make sure that our folks are entering the most accurate information the first time. Right, so our CALEA assessment, in case some of you did not know, Portsmouth Police Department is currently going through a national assessment to evaluate our police department. We are having everything evaluated as it relates to our policies and practices on a national level. 406 standards are being looked at for an advanced accreditation. When this happens, it will be the first time in the history of Portsmouth Police Department that we've ever been an accredited department. Something that's going to be huge for us as a department and also as a city. There are only about 25% of the departments in the country that are, or in the state, that are accredited. So again, this is a monumental thing, and so we actually have the person here. She's from a major from Columbus, Ohio, that's here evaluating our department. It was the first day. She'll be here until Friday. So keep your fingers crossed. You know, again, as we continue to move forward and improve as an organization. Service level agreement. This is one of the things that was implemented when Mr. Carter came in as the city manager. So basically what this is it tells you as a citizen, what services do we offer as a police department and what can you expect? And this is just an example. So if Mr. Carter calls and files a police report, when should he expect to hear from someone from the police department? And then how do you evaluate if that's actually happening? So for us, that's a mechanism that we are instituting. One of the things that is going to help us with this is a module called Power Engage. We're probably about 60 to 90 days out from that fully being implemented. With Power Engage, it will allow individuals to not only enter surveys with the police department after they have an interaction with a police officer. So it will come to your cell phone. How was that interaction? It helps us not only address poor behavior, but it also gives you an opportunity to leave positive feedback when an officer does something appropriate. But the service level agreement will help us kind of make sure that we're staying on track, we're providing the services, and we're getting the feedback necessary to continue to improve. All right, so just an overview of our goals for 2025 as a police department. 20% overall reduction in crime, 10% reduction in homicides. Major one, reduce our vacancy rate by 30% through targeted recruitment and innovative recruitment methods. Our service level agreement, we've already accomplished that, gotten that out. And again, please understand that's a living document, so there's going to be a continued update to that. Becoming an accredited department, we're on the way to that. Reduce the recidivism of repeat offenders. So that is part of us working with organizations like Portsmouth United and all of our nonprofits to be able to hopefully retain that, obtain that particular goal. One of the things, and I think Mr. Warner will put that out, so I'm not going to steal his thunder, but we got some good news on them being the #1 in the state as rated by DCJS as it relates to work program, work release, things of that nature. So that's good information. We just had a officer become certified in our truck weight. So Mr. Moody for that. All right, okay. And creating our gun dashboard. Again, we're all in the process, so just some of our goals, you can kind of see those things coming to fruition for us now. All right, any questions that you may have as I transition to this next information? That's right.
I have a question, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
The gun violence dashboard, how far out are we looking at before that goes live?
I told her I wanted it done by May 1. So I have no thought that he won't have it together by May 1.
And that will be accessible on the city website?
So where it will live,
have figured out a way to increase water pressure.
No, it's okay. Where exactly we'll live, we've yet to figure that out yet. It may live multiple places because again, it is something but definitely it will be on the police department website.
In terms of the accreditation process, just for the public's knowledge, what's the benefit of our police department going through that process?
So obviously what it says is as a police department, we are doing best practices as it relates to recommendations put forth by this national board. related to standards for 21st century policing. Again, that we have our policies and procedures as it relates to our department match what industry standards say a department should be doing. Not only that, it also allows us to be able to compete for different grants that probably are going to start to be more scrutinized. One of those things that you're going to probably have to have going forward to be able to compete for some of those things. And so again, it just kind of puts us in a different bracket as it relates to consideration of what a good police department looks like. Now, obviously, there are multiple other factors that are continued work in progress as it relates to culture, as it relates to just interaction with citizens, and these are all things that are ongoing. And even with the accreditation, just because you get it doesn't mean you're going to keep it. You have to continue to be to make sure your policies stay up to date and you continue to do what you say that you're doing. And that's part of what our on-site is. We've already submitted and passed our online assessment. So they said, okay, you say you did this, so now I'm coming to actually see if you're actually doing it. So that's what we're going through right now. So again, every chief I've ever had since I've been here has made this something that needed to happen. So to finally get to this point is huge for us.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Can I add something to this? You won't toot his own horn on this, but it's one thing for me to tell you I have a great police department. It's another thing for a national accreditation agency to come in and validate that we have a great police department. Less than 10% of all police departments in the whole United States are certified by CLEAR. So that puts us in an exclusive group, and this shows our community that we're really working hard at trying to be the absolute best police department that we can. And for people that don't know, I've been through these before. This is a big deal. Okay, this is a real big deal.
May I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
The service level agreement, that language isn't familiar with me, but I think what I heard, just for the regular public folks, is that is basically what you can expect, what I as a citizen can expect from the police department.
It's more in line with a lot of business practices.
Okay.
Okay, so it's kind of it's unfamiliar definitely to law enforcement and probably city government as well. So I think a lot of us when we first heard about it, the first thing we want to do is Google and see who has one. Well, I can tell you there's not a lot that are out there as it relates to city government and how we interact with our public. But when you start looking at municipalities as a business, and again, there are certain practices, there are services. I provide public safety. So when I really start to peel those layers away, we do provide fingerprinting. We do provide, crime prevention surveys. And so these are things we do every single day, but there should be as Mr. Carter says, if I'm going to McDonald's to get a hamburger, I can't ask for a Whopper. Right? You should be able to have a particular, know what you're offering and be able to get that. So that is the purpose of the agreement. But it also, the other part of that is for us to be able to develop metrics to be able to measure whether we're hitting those marks. And so that's the second part of having that service level agreement. Are we doing what we say? And so we want to be able to put that out as well so that at the end of the year I can say, hey, we had 900 calls for service or police reports that were filed, and 85%, 90% were in this time frame. And those ones that weren't, I want to be able to find out why weren't they, what was the issue with them.
Thank you.
All right.
Chief, I got a couple of questions.
Go ahead, sir.
So you mentioned that you're going to start working on gathering mental or behavioral health stats. Mm-hmm. I assume you're doing that in collaboration with BHS.
So we're definitely in talks and communication with them. We just met on that last week before last, trying to make sure we're staying in line with our rollout of Marcus Alert. Of course, we are operating two CIT teams at this point. One of the difficulties is, so if a citizen calls in and says there's a gentleman in the middle of the street and he's dancing and his pants are falling down. This is a common call, so that's why I use it. His pants are falling down, right?
We have a lot of that in our neighborhood.
Right. So the pants are falling down. So if the dispatcher takes that call, sometimes they'll label it as mental health, and we can easily track that. Other times they might say a suspicious situation, and it gets logged that particular way. So we need to make sure that we're logging all of those calls and let the officer get there and change the particular call if it's something other than that. We can agree 9 times out of 10 a person dancing in the middle of the street, pants falling down, is probably going to be a mental health type situation, drug use or whatever. But let the officer kind of change that, but us categorizing it as close as possible at the right time. And again, that's where we start talking about statistics, not intentional, but if I don't log it right and then nobody goes and changes it, that's one of those outliers that's going to get missed unless somebody does a scrub of every narrative to say, okay, here's the language, this needs to be classified as that. So we're going to, there's only a few of those dashboards too, and I want to kind of get with the health department because they kind of have some good information that we can kind of all get some use out of it. So I want to try to get as many good information. There's not a lot of them that are out there.
Yeah, well, so again, to your earlier point, the more we know from data, the more we'll know how much VHS support your folks need to respond to those kind of problems. Because right now, you guys, I assume, are responding to all those problems, and VHS is probably only responding to them between 8 and 5 on Monday to Friday.
So our CRT teams they've been keeping their numbers on a spreadsheet. Obviously, we keep our numbers. 988 keeps their numbers.
Yeah.
And everybody's a little bit everywhere. We need to have a centralized repository of all information related to us so we can see how much time we're spending, with these calls, what's happening with the folks. Is the same person, 7, 8, 10 times we're dealing with this person, some of which just from our internal dashboard, from names, I can look at and say, hey, we've dealt with this person 40 times this year alone. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be drunk in publics. It's going to be mental health issues. It's the same person all the time. And they're generally the folks that tie up the most amount of services for us.
Okay. Second question. So I saw recently your counterpart in Virginia Beach was warning the Virginia Beach folks about the number of guns being stolen from cars. You said at one of your quarterly briefs that, I think one last year, maybe year before last, we had like 198 guns stolen from cars. How is that trend going?
It's still a problem for us. We continue to track it. I don't have the number today, but I will make sure I have it for the forum. But I think we're probably under 50 right now for the year. One of the things that we're doing a lot more of is the tracking of these guns as we get them.
Yeah.
Of course, some of them are not really stolen, just being honest.
Yeah.
Some of them are straw purchases. Again, you purchase a gun, you sell it to him, you report it stolen so you can wash your hands of it, and then 2 or 3 days later that gun is used in a crime. We can track it like that through NIBIN and through the ATF. But of course that gives us an opportunity to go back to him and say, who'd you sell the gun to, and things of that nature. And we've probably got one gentleman I know that's probably lost 4 firearms, some of which he was robbed of 2 firearms. Don't know how that happened. Robbed of 2 firearms, lost one in the house, that type of stuff. So we know automatically that's an issue for us.
So I guess I would encourage you in your dashboard to maybe pull that number out as a separate line, just to keep it visible in front of everybody, so folks that are being careless about locking up their weapons in their cars
Definitely can do that.
are reminded. And then just a comment. So I was at the Coffee with a Cop thing out at the Wawa a couple of weeks ago. I was talking with a couple of Wawa security folks who were there, and they complimented your team on the QR code effort and how they've gotten great feedback from store management to have your guys, gals in the stores scanning the QR code, which kind of then offers the opportunity for the store employees to make relational connections to your folks that are out in that area. So I know shoplifting's an issue, but I also know having your folks doing the QR code program is, I think, reassuring the store staff that your folks are around and available. So I appreciate you doing that. And the Wawa folks told me we never saw that before. So you're on to something, and they're quite pleased with what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Won't take credit for that, Lieutenant Kevin Parker. That was his capstone project from University of Chicago when he went for the crime lab for their police leadership. He brought that back, something so simple. Again, the goal is to get people out of the car into the store to make a quick interaction. Hey, who did you talk to, and what did you talk about? And of course, everything that they log, it gives us the opportunity to be able to go back and see what stores are really getting the most, what stores are being neglected, and then overlay those to what if the shoplifting has gone down, if we're being effective. So that's really a good benefit for us.
And you get a free coffee.
And you get a free coffee. Use of the bathroom.
There you go.
All right. I'm going to show you
By
this
15
video
times
real
without
quick,
using any
but
energy.
This will
This new
hopefully,
$80 jet pressure accelerator
the intent of this is really to hopefully drive home what.
Are you stuck? Are you frustrated with your job, your partner, your coworkers, or your
I guess
boss?
this jumped
Well,
on.
consider this. Anytime you feel stuck,
For years,
So what this hopefully will do is drive home what violence interruption really looks like and because I know we often get a lot of questions about it.
Baltimore was a poster child for big city crime, but now it's becoming the model for a turnaround. Gun violence has fallen more rapidly there than in any other major U.S. city. One way Baltimore has reduced crime is by tapping into the expertise of people who used to perpetrate it. Nicole Valdez has tonight's Eye on America.
What do we need? This is Brooklyn. Not that Brooklyn. This neighborhood is in South Baltimore. It's where we met Sean Weiss.
What do we need?
Weiss is a tough guy,
I sold a lot of drugs.
and Brooklyn is a tough place.
My circle was built around a bunch of killers.
The violence hit closest to home in 2015 when his younger brother Nadeem was killed. He was 24, one of nearly 300 shooting deaths in Baltimore that year.
My soul just was like, gone.
That changed Weiss.
You know what I'm saying?
Now,
Stop, shoot!
he's helping to change Brooklyn.
Was that the moment that made you say, enough?
That was the moment that it made me sit down and evaluate life.
Weiss joined Safe Streets Baltimore, a city-run anti-violence program that works to prevent crime by hiring some experts in the field, people with criminal records.
To do this work, you have to have a rapport with the guys in the community. That's how the program was designed, for people from the community. We motivated every day just because, like, we are Brooklyn. I used to live right here. Cooley used to live right there.
Weiss and his team patrol the streets wearing bright orange uniforms. They walk through hot zones, some of the most violent areas, they mediate conflicts and offer help getting resources, including food or job training.
They know you're here for them for support, and they can pretty much come to you about anything.
City leaders say the approach is a big part of why Brooklyn just went a record 472 days without a single homicide. Baltimore-wide, gun deaths have dropped 45% in the last 6 years. Baltimore isn't alone. 41 states have dedicated funding for violence intervention programs, according to gun safety advocates Everytown. Studies show that programs like this in cities including Chicago, Philadelphia, and Richmond, California, have helped decrease shootings and killings by more than 30%.
For far too long, not just here in Baltimore, but across this country, we put the full weight of reducing violence on the backs of police officers, and that was wrong.
Brandon Scott is mayor of Baltimore.
There are some who would argue you're taking a risk on the guys that you're hiring to do these jobs. Why do you take that risk?
If we want to solve and cure this disease, we have to go to the people who understand it better than anybody else.
So do you think that you've seen success in Safe Streets?
No.
Like, no.
No.
You don't think you've seen success?
No. We've seen good work in progress.
But have more work to do.
Absolutely.
Work that gives Weiss and others hope for Baltimore. For Eye on America, I'm Nicole Valdez in Baltimore.
So I hope that kind of drove home a
Why
little
do
bit
so many
for you.
folks over 40 with type 2 start walking?
What we're talking about when we talk about violence interruption and what it looks like. Are there some risk involved with that? Absolutely. You're going to come in contact with some folks that are not quite ready to help yet, right? They're still teetering on that, and those individuals that are not quite ready, I'm here to help them. Okay, let's just be honest. There's crime prevention, there's intervention, and then there's that last component, which is what we offer, right? We want our nonprofits, we want our BHS and social services, we want to be a part of offering opportunities for folks who are looking for opportunity to change, resources. We want to be able to help have that. But we also want to make sure that as a police department, that folks know the definitive line in which we're going to play in this. We got a lot of, I think we're a lot further ahead than people actually know. Peace Week was kind of like a culmination of kind of a lot of the hard work that got put into it. We got a lot of cities that kind of were caught and were like, wow, we should have did something like that. And that's one of those things that Portsmouth really should and I think we got a lot of good coverage, but I think that's one of those things that we really should tell our story about, of stuff that we're doing that's a little bit more innovative. We had a whole week where if a parent with a school-aged child didn't have something for them to do, that was on them. Whether it was job training, whether it was, we had 100 kids we had 300 kids at Safety Town. I mean, there was stuff, Eugene had stuff going on where they had folks come in and do interviews. They did resume building. They sat down and had talked about, using LinkedIn and all of these other good things. Mercy Chefs did cooking class. We had a lot going on, and that was well thought out. Kudos to Ms. Matthews for helping coordinate that, and just kind of just putting all of these things together. And I think the hardest thing for us right now is just making sure everybody understands is that's why we keep pushing the Portsmouth United, because folks want to, I want my name to hear, and we don't have time for all of that. Our accolades will come with the reduction in crime, with the reduction in lives lost, and things of that nature. So that model of violence intervention for us, I think, will play dividends for us. The goal is to kind of put a violence interrupter or have a violence interrupter living in those affected areas mostly, and that way they're all collaborating with each other. Today we had several fights out in London Oaks, females fighting, unfortunately. Problem is, sometimes you introduce young men with firearms into it, and something that was simple as a fight now turns into a violent act. And so we've been navigating stuff like that. Of course, everybody heard about the Food Lion incident over the weekend. It's unfortunate the guy pulled out a knife, and it's unfortunate he made the guy shoot him. Yeah, I mean,
I think that's important, though.
Yeah, no,
that you mentioned what the
everybody's heard that.
The details about some of these
heard
shootings
that is, bring a knife to a gunfight. You just don't.
You do not do that.
And whatever the conflict was between those two, it's unfortunate that they could not resolve it. And of course, once the guy introduced the knife into it, this gentleman had every right to defend himself, and that's what he did. And so we'll continue to navigate through that. Obviously, we've got witnesses and video, and charges are pending in that particular manner. We're not taking any sides in that, but again, you have the judicial process to go through. So I am done. Thank y'all for letting me to present. Any other questions before I sit down?
I have a comment, Chief, and I think you said something that stood out to me, particularly on needing to do a better job of touting what's happening in the city, right? In terms of the good things, like there was media coverage of last week, but in terms of using the city's platforms to put out what's happening, utilizing the commission and the task force, using our platforms. We've been doing that for the most part, but also making sure we're using the city's platforms to put that out. That's something that I noticed over the last couple of weeks. I'll also mention that many of you know I'm finishing up my master's at ODU right now. I'll be graduating in 3 weeks. One of my last research projects, I took a look at the policy case for continuing to fund the Virginia Safer Communities program. And in that research, I went and looked at other states and their cities in terms of their communications to the public on what's happening. And I looked at what we're doing here, and that's one area of improvement. Of course, we can work with the community engagement committee to focus on that, but I think that's one area that really stood out to me is making sure we're touting what we're doing in terms of the numbers going down, but also the events that's happening, the programming that's happening, to make sure the public is aware. And I think, like you just said, Eugene, like people should know the details of what's happening, not just the headlines, because the media is going to say, oh, well, this happened at Food Lion, but what actually took place? And you can only do but so much because you have to take care of the city, but what can we do as a task force?
But even from a social media standpoint, it is the news and it's social media. Like, we know that as soon as somebody gets shot, they be like, oh, I told you, look, they don't know the circumstances behind it. It could have been like, I remember one time it was like, remember the brothers, they was like, one was like 60 something, they was like 64 and 65, like that's an isolated incident. You can't just lump that in with what you consider to be a gun violence or a violence problem. So like I said, I think details matter, and I think screaming those numbers, like even the reduction, we talked about it maybe a couple months ago, screaming the reduction, like you can't keep going complaining about something if you don't have details about it. And I think once you put the details out, it kind of deafens the people just want to be critical, because you do have those people that's out here that's honestly waiting for something to happen so they can be like, for whatever reason, everybody have their motives for what they do stuff for, but I think you can't argue numbers. Like when people throw numbers at you, like we even talk about that with some of the stuff we do. Like we could talk for days and we can't really show you the data. Then it's like somebody could really like, nah, I don't think that's really happening. But numbers don't lie. Like you said, y'all pulling this straight from somewhere. You're not making these numbers up. So we are getting reductions in a lot of the crime that's happening. And I do think police department and a lot of the community groups, they working hard out here. So sometimes you do want somebody to be like, hey man, you're doing a good job, instead of every time something bad happens, what they doing? Like I don't say nothing, but you know what I'm saying? Like we talk a lot, and I don't say nothing, but we kind of recognize that there is a crowd out here that kind of maybe not wanted to be successful, but you can't argue numbers. So I think stuff like this need to be highlighted a lot, along with a lot of the community stuff that go on. So
I'll probably just say in that context is the city, the police department, our nonprofit, we put out a tremendous amount Portsmouth has a tremendous amount of resources, right? A tremendous amount of services. We have some things that other cities don't. but we also know that some people will find what they want to find. Okay, and I'll give you a prime example. This is not a shot at anything, right? So we can offer free gun locks. We might get 10 or 15. We offer free turkeys. It lasted 4 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, and I'm not saying in between, but what I am saying is information travels for what folks are really interested in. We put out a lot of information. It's on the city site. You know, I can't make folks log on. You know, I would love for them to put the Portsmouth Police Department on their Facebook page, that every once in a while a feed would come on. I'm sure Doc would love that they would log on to the health department page just to understand, hey, there's an uptick in syphilis in the area, right? You understand? But that information is out there. But all we can do is continue to push it out there as much as I can. Again, I'm going to say some of the same information on Wednesday at the forum, but somebody will still bypass it. We put it out on social media. We record it. All we can do is continue to push it out as much as possible. We really do need the folks in this room and our nonprofits and all the other folks to kind of carry that message of what we are doing as it relates to services that we're providing, and in addition to, you know, the reductions that we do have. We're going to have those situations happen. Violence is going to happen. We can't expect that we're not going to have anything happen. But as we continue to move, we have to kind of get, I guess, in what is an acceptable level, I guess we should say, and that's a realistic conversation.
I was looking at a pilot where they had behavioral health going on with police officers, and that was a really fascinating one, coming in terms of decreasing and that. I'm from New York, and I'm curious to know how you're supporting your staff dealing with all of this, because after 9/11, you know, there are a lot of out-of-the-box thinking, right, about meditation. You know, there's a study that shows if you get 1% of the community meditating, this policing effect, and they've done it in DC, decreasing violent crimes. And I'm also bringing in two people who did AccuDetox, despite pointing within a year to decrease cravings and drug addiction. But, you know, just kind of looking at everything all together, just curious to know how you support your staff.
Yeah, so that's a ever-evolving. It didn't have to think about it years ago. I mean, it was, you responded to somebody whose head got shot off. All right, close your eyes, turn around 3 times, and go to the next call. I mean, that's just what it was. Yeah. Today, we're looking at, we already have a quiet room, which we've had to institute, zero gravity chair, you know, soft music, things of that nature, to allow people that opportunity to go and decompress for a minute. We've really changed the way we started to utilize our chaplains. Originally, our chaplains were for the public, and you know, they would, you know, just ride anytime we had a violent situation or something happened. They would be notifications. But what we found is that our officers really enjoy that interaction, and in particular when they're having some moments, you can find them asking, can I get, you know, the chaplain to rap with me, so they can have that interaction. You know, we're even looking at, we were talking at the most recent Chiefs meeting, of just like everything else, data of starting to track how many traumatic calls a person goes through or goes to within a certain amount of days, and then if the opportunity presents itself, do you switch them to another service area where the call volume may be a little bit different. The downside of it is Portsmouth's only so big, so you still got a high probability of being able to go to that call anyway. But you know, there is a difference, and you know, we're exploring the possibility of doing service type animal to come in and things like that. So, but I'm all open for anything at this point. You know, we just want to make sure we're offering the best for our folks, because that is a part of changing the culture as well. is being able to provide them with the relief they need. Job. All right, thank y'all.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
All right. Our next agenda item is we'll now move into committee updates. And we'll start off with the Community Engagement Committee. I know Mr. James Cullen sent over a report earlier today. Many of us wasn't able to have access to it because we don't have access to our Outlook emails as we got kicked out over the weekend, and we'll get that figured out. But
kicked out your email?
He did.
Yeah, we got kicked out of our email over the weekend. But I believe Ms. Matthews provided a copy.
Kicked out of city email.
Say again?
This is an issue of them getting kicked out of their city email address. So
Yeah, I assume that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, okay.
So you couldn't get in yours either?
We're only allowed to access it from a non-personal device.
And I couldn't access it from my computer.
So that's what it was. That's what I didn't.
Yeah.
I guess so.
You on that? See, I got mine on my phone. That's what it said. Restricted from this device. It did say that. I didn't.
Yeah, Jim said that you got a Teams message and we're only allowed to access our city email from city devices, but since we're not issued city devices, that
Bring
puts
the
us
iPhone 20s. we want that new.
I did not say that.
I think we can find a cheaper solution.
It starts with.
Hey, I had a question for you though. I had a question for you. So,
Yes, sir.
I know we talk a lot about the crime in some of these neighborhoods is because of some of the empty houses, correct? We've had that conversation before. Have we come up with something to get these houses sold? Is it something we can't do that?
Well, the city, unless the city owns it, I mean, we're
But
not
you
in
know,
that.
it's something. I know it's something the city can do if the person is not taking care of the property. Some of these properties are abandoned.
Right.
Maybe not on paper. You know what I'm saying? On paper, they're not abandoned.
All property belongs to somebody. It's just a
Correct.
matter of finding who they are. And yes, if we got blighted houses or empty houses, other places I've done called a vacant property registry.
Right.
Where you hire this company and they go find everybody that these vacant properties belong to, and give those addresses and contact information to the city.
Right.
That way, when we have an issue with one of these properties, instead of us, send an email to New York someplace and nobody ever replies back, we actually have valid information of who we need to contact. So that's one thing that we could do. But if there's a problem with the property, we can call our code enforcement in. The problem with code enforcement is there's a process that you have to go through, and you want there to be a process. You don't want the city to just be able to come and take over your property. You know,
Sure.
there's a whole process that you have to go through, from hey, just calling them, to send them a letter, to writing a citation, to taking them to court. Court's probably going to give them more time. So it's just a process, man.
But to your point, the process can't start until the process is started.
Right.
And so it takes time, but it takes forever if nobody ever makes a report.
Right.
So do you know See-Click-Fix?
I just read it on the paper. Literally a few minutes ago.
So this is important for all of you commissioners, but it's important for all of our citizens too.
Yes.
I mean, so the way to get the process started is an app. See-Click-Fix is the name of the app.
Yes.
So when you get your iPhone 20, actually, whatever iPhone you got right now, it'll work just
It'll work on that one too.
Yeah. But it allows you to submit reports with GPS location.
Yeah, you take a picture of it.
Picture.
Right.
And if you
I
and
think
it goes directly
it came
into the
from this-
311 system, which means then if there's a compliance issue, it goes to the compliance guys, the neighborhood inspector, to go follow up on the picture to set the process in motion.
I just feel like that would be a way to help. I can't remember if Norfolk just did it out Huntersville. I didn't just think of it. I saw it somewhere and it made me mention. I think, no, I'm not mistaken. Did Norfolk just
I've
do it?
also seen something about it where folks were thinking about the impact and the effects that vacant houses.
So
have.
you know what theirs might have been?
Balances.
It might have been vacant lots.
Yeah.
It might not have been actual houses on these properties. It might have been lots that they had where they did like I don't know if it was an auction or they sold the property with the promise that, hey, I'm gonna build on this property and such and such, such and such. And it kind of, I ain't gonna say it cleaned up the whole Huntersville, but some of those streets, if you ever rode down A Avenue and B Avenue, you know some of them stuff, you just know something going on. And it just looked a little different with a couple new houses on the block. It kind of changed. Like a person not gonna go stand all day in front of a brand new house. Like it's just not gonna do it. But one with broken windows, and they probably will stand there because nobody gonna say nothing to them. So I just felt like maybe that would be possible, or a way that we can find out who own these houses and try to get some of these houses, or even some of the vacant property that's in some of the neighborhoods that the people hanging around. Like the end of LaSalle, that whole lot, it's nothing on that corner, right? It's just all grass area right there. But if you ride down there, if y'all ride down LaSalle, what's that, the corner of LaSalle and Randolph, it's just always people out there. And you know they don't live out there. This is just they hang out every day. So I just felt like if there was something there, they probably would stop.
Okay.
I think that's something for us to consider.
Absolutely, there's something.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, Mr. Cullen sent over his report for the Community Engagement Committee. So hopefully you all can take some time to look over that report between now and our meeting that's in about 2 weeks. So we'll have some questions to bring to Mr. Cullen. Also, our Vice Chair, Ms. Patillo, sent over a report to us today. Ms. Matthews printed out for us, and also I'll ask that you take some time to look over her report as well. And at our next meeting, if you have any questions for the community engagement or the data and metrics committees, we'll pose them then at that time.
I'll just fill in the gaps for Mr. Cullen's report. We will be meeting with some folks from the city of Norfolk on Friday to talk about collaboration.
Okay.
And Portsmouth United collaborating with their Safer Communities program over there. I meet with the lieutenant who oversees their Safer Communities program every 2 weeks. But we're tying in some other folks from the city at this next meeting. So that was his last update in that report. So I didn't want to share that out because he got that momentum going for us to meet.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. And our other committee, intervention, Ms. Sessoms.
I have been active in the interview process for the VIs, which is really a critical part of reducing gun violence in the city. They've already talked about it in detail already today, but I have been a little sharp in my questions. I have a very different background, but I have both, and it's a challenging interview to sit through, but I understand like the goal is not like what I'm actually accustomed to from, clinical standpoint, but it's been interesting to be a part of the panel and to have, to see from a different set of lens and like how they perceive crime, how they would want to reduce crime, and how they feel like they can contribute to what our overall goal of reducing crime by 10%. So that's been good. I've also been meeting with some of the Portsmouth United vendors, well, the nonprofits, just trying to assess like what everybody really does, because believe it or not, it's a lot of us that are a part, and that's still like don't know what everybody do. So trying to get a accurate depiction of what's really going on, what do you actually do, because a lot of us offer similar services, and just making sure that we are familiar, so if there is a client that your organization can benefit from, that everybody is aware of exactly what services we offer, because we're in the room a lot, but still like people don't know like what people actually do. So that has been interesting just to hear a lot of it's diverse. We have like churches, just all different types of groups, and it's reading, it's community engagement, it's sports, it's physical activity, boxing, but all of that really ties into keeping our individuals, whether it's the adults or the children, engaged and to reduce the gun violence. So that's my update that I have.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Sessoms. Are there any questions for Ms. Sessoms?
So I have a comment.
Yeah, I got a question too.
In the kind of, must have been the appendix of the Bloomberg Harvard report, the researcher did some homework that basically took, so this is kind of getting to who does what and how do we get everybody kind of working together. So they took the process, what happens before violence happens, what happens immediately during and immediately after, and then what needs to happen kind of well after. And then they broke each of those things up into, the police have things to do, behavioral health has things to do. Anyway, so they're kind of these silos in each of those three things. And then they mapped a lot of our grassroots organizations, at least at the time, into each of those categories. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have.
So I'm wondering if we don't have already a lot of information to help. Just take a look at.
Yes.
Because a lot of the grassroots organizations that are enrolled in Portsmouth United, I think were existing back then and have kind of been mapped in there. And I know at the last Portsmouth United meeting that I went to, Ms. Matthews introduced to everybody that the grant process was opening, and one of the things that the committee's going to consider is there are certain swim lanes where we're missing expertise, and so we want to try to find organizations that fit in those missing silos to make sure that if we missed them the first time, that we specifically shake the trees and find them this time. And so it seemed to me that was a nicely structured way of taking a look at this problem. And I think there's a lot of information already available on the grassroots outfits that are already out there.
Yes, thank you for that. I will. I do remember reading it some time ago, but I will use that as a frame of reference. And also, it's a lot of organizations that I won't say new, but just have surfaced here recently that would need to be incorporated. So
and maybe we can use that same structure with anybody that isn't in there and figure out, okay, where do they fit, and get a updated picture of what we got covered and what we don't have covered.
So is it a way for them to do referrals for each other?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so that's what we've been, talking about, just trying to streamline the process to really understand what everybody offers, what is their criteria, and how can we, because they get a lot of calls, and so how would they determine who would meet what, who would qualify for what program?
Right.
That's why we have that directory.
And that's based on like an assessment.
Yeah. I'll jump in real quick. So it's multi-layered. So there is a directory, not just with organizations that have grant funds from Portsmouth United, but pretty much everyone who's in the room, because there's organizations that are included with Portsmouth United and they come to the meetings and they engage. That's on that directory as well. So that's kind of tier one, like who's in the room, what do they offer, etc. Tier 2 is when someone needs support. We actually have a link that goes directly to me and my interns if someone needs support, and then we link them with the organization or organizations that provide the services we think they might benefit from. Community of Change is one of those organizations. We will tie them in when someone needs an assessment, when they need heavy case management work. So it's really, we're building out an ecosystem. We're still in the building phases, so it may feel a little disjointed at times, but we are certainly working to fill those gaps to make sure when people need resources, we have the right folks to get them the support they need.
And the one question I had, Leticia, I just wanted you to, because you spoke on it a little bit, I kind of want you to kind of explain to them what you meant by that. Like, because it was good for me that it was somebody at the interviews that did have a different lens.
Yes.
because if you could see how we were, we just was like, even the question that I asked, I know this. Like, I'm asking the people, like, you ever been shot before? Like, you ever shot? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to know that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but it's a reason for that.
Right.
Because you have to be able to function in these neighborhoods. Yeah. And what made me bring it up, because we had a guy that aced the interview, but he wasn't from Portsmouth. You get what I'm saying? So he, like, even though he answered all the questions well, he probably wouldn't get access. Like the person that you need. Yeah. Now we had a person that I know for sure is going to get access, but he bombed the interview. Like, he was like answering the questions like, what? Like, really, he just kept saying, I'm gonna just let God handle it. He said it a bunch of times. I know him, like, he's not my like best friend or nothing. I'm from Portsmouth, it's small. I know him, and I know he could do it with the proper training. You get this kid that got that type of access to training, he'll kill it. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? And she kind of like, the question she was asking, the people was like, okay, that was a guy, I wouldn't have asked that question. That's a good question, Leticia. You know what I'm saying?
She did.
Yeah, she was like coming in when we was asking like the surface stuff. She was kind of like, well, hey, can you do this? Yeah. I want to know if you can do this, because like you said, the job is more than just access. You have to be able to plug that in. You have to be able to write a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but those weren't the questions we were asking. When I say we, meaning me and some of the other guys that was up there, we asking, hey, can you go?
That's the value of having a diverse.
For sure.
I think, for me, because I see it from both sides, but the most critical part is that they're not still in the streets, right? Mm-hmm. And that they can document their work. And that's what I find is a struggle for these individuals.
The documenting part.
Yes, right. Because, with grants, you have to support your work. Like, you can be out there all day long and doing the work, but if you don't have the data to represent the work that you are doing, when it's time to submit those reports, your work is questionable, and then your funding becomes questionable. So, like, do you have a computer? Do you Microsoft Word? I mean, some of them didn't have driver's license or a car. I'm like, how is this gonna work when you got to go to a scene? So
you have to be somewhere.
It was interesting, but I think we have a very workable group that, with the people that have been identified to train, along with the leadership of the Portsmouth Police Department and Portsmouth United, I think it will be.
Like, good. Even assessing some of the guys, like, hey, he will be good, but I think you should put him with somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was stuff like that. Like, okay, we're not going to just cancel this person out. Maybe this person hey, you need to hold his hand maybe for this first go round for him to kind of understand it. So, no, it was good though. Interviews was good, man.
Yeah. We have 3 more tomorrow. I want y'all forget now.
Okay.
It's on the calendar.
And
open arrow.
I think you bring up a good point too, because even if some of these folks aren't selected, finding some capacity for them to help out in violence interruption, right? And I think you brought up a good point. It's like, you might not have the skills to be able to document, but what else can you do to help if you have those ties?
But that too, because the particular guy we were talking about, even one of your officers was like, man, we gotta hire him for something.
Yeah, like, he was like, if y'all don't hire him, I'm
like, he would be like, he might can't do the violence interruption, but there is something, his story and just the way he carried himself, you just felt like, hey, you need to bring him in and figure out something for him to do. So
I know that Portsmouth United have plans to do greater projects, and so the few people that we did interview was like, it might not be a good violence interrupter, but safe passage, get them at the school bus stop, get the kids, back and forth to school. The hurdle with that is just, these people are looking for a job right now, but that doesn't make it our problem. It just means that when we have the safe passage, they may not be available, but we look for the next candidate. So
something to consider. All right, thank you, Ms. Essems. All right, the last committee, which is the committee that I chair, resource allocation. I took some time to draft a written report. Ms. Matthews have access to that. She'll send that out post this meeting in the next few days. But I also drafted just a couple of slides to walk through what's been happening. And so over the last couple of weeks, I took the time to put together a form of members of the community to fill out if they're interested in participating on the Resource Allocation Committee. On that form, it went out across social media, Facebook, Instagram, some other platforms, asked for contact information, organizational affiliations for transparency, of course, to make sure there's no conflict of interest in certain things. Wanted to make sure they're available for meetings. That's the whole point of participating on a committee, and also any initial ideas on resources that we could provide to the community. And so where we are now, post trying to find folks to serve on the committee, of course, there's always scheduling conflicts with people just like us who are working, and so we've had a hard time trying to get a meeting on the calendar. But instead of just waiting until we got a meeting on the calendar, some of us have gone ahead and started working on resource allocation. And so we've drafted a Google Sheet of resources from across the state of Virginia and other cities that we found might be helpful for here in Portsmouth. And we're going to continue to fill that out. The next step is broadening that input, so getting you all here on the task force to help send us some resources in the community, other information to put onto that dashboard as well. The hope is that we can develop another form to have you all go in. Whenever you come across something, just fill out the form and we can input it inside of the database. We also don't want to reinvent the wheel if it's also something already there. And we know that Ms. Matthews, Portsmouth United, other entities in Portsmouth have access to resources already. And so we'll go in and put it inside of that database. But the next step, and so kind of divided up into tiers. Tier 2 is to, again, work with the Community Engagement Committee to distribute these resources across the city, across our organizations and our partners in the city. Work with Portsmouth United to wider access to some of these resources as well, and to make sure that a lot of this information is accessible and digestible for our partner organizations in the city, because we know that there's grants out there, there's resources, but it doesn't mean everybody know about it, right? And so we want to make sure that we utilize our committees like community engagement to get these resources out there. And the third tier is figuring out how can we evaluate the effectiveness of these resources, the effectiveness of our partners and these organizations utilizing these grants and these programs that we put out there that's been happening for years. And so we divided into 3 tiers. The hope is that putting together this committee of folks from around the city that have expressed interest in the committee, we can empower them to lead in this space and lead this work. And then, of course, we'll provide updates, monthly updates outside of those committee meetings at each of our commission meetings every month as well. So are there any questions? Yes, sir.
I always have a question. Question's really for Ms. Matthews. So you're working on an app.
Yes. Work in progress.
So it seems to me that one of the things that we want to have on that app is all the work that the Resources Committee is doing. So have you guys connected? Because you're getting ready to do a whole bunch of work to gather information, but if what you are looking for isn't on your list of questions to ask, then we're going to do a whole bunch of work and then perhaps have to go back and do a whole bunch of more work that we could have done all the first time if we're all kind of aiming for the same thing.
That's a great question. And I think part of it too now is I've taken a step back and I know that there are databases out there already and with resources, and so we might not have to go in individually and put in all of this stuff because we know where this stuff is lying, and it's going to be the same way when the app is being developed because all of that information has to be put in via database. And so I think that's something that we'll continue to talk about, but you raise a good point.
So are you saying allocation for Portsmouth United as an organization, or for helping each individual organization under Portsmouth United get other sources of funding?
The way that I see it is both. So it's the work that the commission and the task force is going to do going forward, but also the organizations within the city, because we're going to gather all of this information. It's not just supposed to be for us, it's supposed to be for the people in the city. So not just the commission, but in Portsmouth United, but also the organizations.
I think that's a good idea to help some of these organizations sustain past what type of money they're getting from the city and maybe expand their programs a little bit.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Well, and then that other category that you just mentioned is important too. It's what's already out there that the city or other folks are already providing that isn't being tapped into because people are just not aware. or like the chief said.
Like, because the EDA grant been out there for a while, right?
Yeah, you put turkeys out there and they all come gobble them up. But if you put the EDA grant out there, maybe not so much.
You got to put the medicine in the candy.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's what you got to do. You have to.
Trick them.
Yeah, you got to get them something where they like, oh, this is so wonderful, and then you got to be like, look, hey, I want you to read this right quick with me. It's only gonna take you about 45 minutes, but you here 3 hours.
Right.
45 minutes. Just do this for me right quick.
Put
Like
it in the
it's-
waiting room instead of the Sports Illustrated. Right?
Yeah, you got to do it, man. It's all good.
Are there any other questions about committees? Comments?
I have one other question. This has to do with the Community Engagement Committee.
Yes.
So, Chief, I don't want to make more work for you, and I'm gonna make work for Jim Cullen. But you probably haven't seen his report. His report is a collection of input from the community. Okay, so let me just share one thing. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, so reckless and dangerous motor vehicle operations, street takeovers with cars spinning their tires, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we know the whole story. Community engagement members visited community meetings and learned that residents feel helpless because the police can't take action due to a restrictive pursuit policy at the city level. Okay, so that's feedback from the community. The thing I'm going to ask Jim Cullen to do is to find out or to connect with whoever you tell me to connect him to get the real story about what you are doing to interrupt the car club stuff and the four-wheeler stuff, and there's a kind of a hodgepodge of feedback from the community. I'm frustrated, I feel helpless about this, that, and the other thing. Well, okay, we get it that they're feeling helpless. Now we want to engage them from the Community Engagement Committee, tell them, okay, so here's the rest of the story, and by the way, if you give up and you stop calling 911, here's what's going to happen. And so who do I put him in touch with, Chief? Okay.
And is the community engagement, is this, like, what neighborhoods is this?
I don't know. Is there a reference? I don't know if
Right.
you referenced the neighborhoods inside of it.
He did not, but they have
Right, I'll
been,
wait.
they have been to a bunch of places all over the city talking to residents. And so, yeah, go.
I'm on that committee as well. And we did, some of the places I know I've gone to, or a lot of the places with Portsmouth United and Peace Week. And we talked to a lot of people, not just Old Town, but Churchland. We went through all of the city.
Okay.
And it was more than just me. It was a couple of different, quite a few different people on the committee that he came back.
So, because the report good, I just want to know what neighborhoods, you know what I'm saying? Like, just tell me what neighborhoods some of this stuff represent. That's you know what I'm saying?
Capital Atlanta too. So I live out, so some of the stuff, it was several different cities. It was in several other places in the city and all that stuff. From not just, like I said, not just here in Old Town, but all throughout the city. And I don't have all the specifics, but I know that I kind of gave them a lot of the ones that I went through and talked to. And I got video footage.
Yeah, so my point is, it's good that we got feedback from the community, but now we need to put the committee members in a position so when they're out having these discussions and the neighbors are complaining that they're feeling helpless and hopeless about this, that, or the other thing, that we can tell them, okay, here's the rest of the story, and here's what we need you to continue to do to help us solve this problem.
Absolutely.
You know, I will say, in addition to that, just, I hear that quite a bit, that, it's because of our school policy that, folks feel like that this is why some of these things happen, okay? So, let's just be clear about what we're talking about. We get a dirt bike that refuses to stop. Our officers chase him, right? That individual ends up crashing out and dying. are those same people going to come up and stand with me and let's try to defend this police department and this city for the actions that we took trying to stop someone driving illegally on a dirt bike?
Yeah.
That is what I want to understand in that aspect. I will give them whatever I'm allowed to give, but I need the support from the community in that aspect of what we're going to do about it. I see all these things on these voices and all this other stuff and how folks feel. But again, let's understand, where was that same sentiment when we paid $11 million for a police pursuit that lasted all of 10 seconds and it killed a person? And my officer only turned his light on for less than 5 seconds. And we paid $11 million because someone disobeyed the law, ran through an intersection, hit and killed someone, and I didn't hear any of this for that. Let me know what you want, and we'll give it. And also understand, for every car we wreck, I need a replacement for that car that we wrecked.
Yep.
I need, these are things that we have to be realistic in what we're talking about. The General Assembly stops, many of our pretextual stops, broken tail lights, tags, all these other things. So now if I stop a vehicle that, for all intents and purposes, has, in fact, I can't even stop it. Let's just be understanding. So if I stop a vehicle and that vehicle takes off, unless that person is fleeing for what we know of a violent offense, as the chief, I got a lot of other things that I have to be thinking. And again, let's understand, I've chased a car from here to Gates County before, here to Lightfoot. We just had a situation a couple of months ago where the kids were out, and it wasn't a kid, it was a young man out in the field in Old Town doing donuts and we ended up getting together and boxing and catching one of them. We've done quite a bit to utilizing our flock cameras to be able to stop some of these things from happening, to be able to go back and locate some of these, and we're still going through the court process. But for individuals to sit and act as if we're just sitting around taking it, one of the most frustrating things is for us to see that happening in front of us, where we got folks doing donuts around police cars, jumping on police cars, and all these other things. And when it ends up in a use of force, and one of my officers shoots and kills one of these people for their lack of respect for law enforcement and the accountability that it holds, I want the same outcry in support of this police department, because I can tell you in the past, it has not been there. And so let's be honest with that. And I'll leave that at that.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments or feedback? I'll just mention that, going back to what the Chief said earlier on after his presentation, there is a conversation to be had about approach in terms of communicating what's happening in the city. And I think that's one of the areas that our community engagement committee, and really all of us as the task force, should be focusing on and figuring out what methods. Because like the Chief said, they're putting out information. They can put it out on the website. It is up to citizens of Portsmouth to go and look on the website. But we know people aren't going to do that. And it's important to meet people where they are. And so I think there are examples and references from other cities like Baltimore, like Chicago, where their communication practices with their citizens, with their city, with the community is up to a standard where people can go on Instagram, go on Facebook, go whatever platform they're on, because that's what people are today, and see what's happening, or look at the billboards right around their city and seeing what's happening from their police department, or if the crime stats are going down. And so I think that's something that we really have to focus on, because we can keep saying we put it out there, but put it out there for who, right? So we can have that conversation.
I think we just got to find a way to sensationalize the positive stuff, like they do the negative stuff.
And we have the marketing people in the
scream
city to
it,
do so.
not just say
For an
it.
example, after our, what meeting was that? Was it in January? Anyway, I posted on my social media about the crime stats. It was after the Chiefs Forum. And you'll be, like, the numbers were significantly reduced, right? Remember, he called me, he's like, these people are crazy. Like, it's people posting like, oh, you praising that. I'm like, yeah. That's improvement.
And for some
like
people,
one
you have
life,
to explain why.
one life.
Yeah.
Like they don't. Hey, listen.
And these
sometimes
were
you just
like
gotta do what you do.
people in our community, influential people in our community.
And we can't forget the educational piece that comes with this. I think that's part of it. Is like, yes, we can communicate, but part of it is educating the community on why this is important, why the numbers going down is important. Because they might think, oh, well, it's still high, but it's not as high as it was.
I think
So
if
we
you
gotta
put the goals out, maybe they'll have something to gauge it by.
Oh, I already got my goals. As soon as I walk out this meeting, I already got it.
Like if you put the goals out, like, hey, we set out to do this, and this is what we did. We exceeded it, or we are pointed to away from it. Like, so
Absolutely.
obviously trending in the right direction. I think just gotta, we definitely gonna figure it out though.
Everybody that reads Facebook is not your supporter.
Oh, correct.
Nah.
I'm clear on that, but
They don't mind telling you that they're not your supporter. All right, no matter what you do well, somebody's going to say something bad about it.
No, they're gonna tell you what it says, what it tells them to do. What do it say up there?
like
Say what's on your mind, right? What it say? What it say at the top? Something about that, right? Like, and that's what people do.
oh yeah, what's on your mind?
What's on your mind?
Yeah.
See, I don't like how they be. Oh my God, bro. So I think they take that literally, and some people just speak their mind. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nah, bro.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but you can't take that as the gauge for whether or not you do what you do.
That's right.
And even with, when we're talking about trying to get information out to people, one of the things they did talk about also was, if I give away turkeys, use that same platform to tell everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. But if I put a positive information on that same platform, nobody knows.
Right.
So it's not that they don't know. People just don't care
they're
sometimes.
just not interested in that part.
Right. Exactly.
Especially if it don't affect them.
Exactly.
Like when you get a lot of screaming, the closer it gets to that person or that community or whatever, that neighborhood. You get
It only matters till it matters.
Yeah, that
correct.
part.
It gets a little louder. There's been a problem that's been going on for 4 or 5 years now for me. So this is been a problem since day one. Like you said, you don't hear some of the screams until they get close to some of these neighborhoods. So you're right though. Just keep. It's not a gauge. I don't care anyway. We don't
I don't.
We don't really care. We're gonna keep moving. But you do want to figure out a way to get some of this positive information out.
there. Yeah.
Absolutely got to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely got to do it. But if you ever do anything in your life, somebody's going to try to pull you down because you did it.
Oh, for sure.
That's just,
all I had was, Chief, thank you. Thank you a lot for the update. I love it. My question would be, is there any way we could get a representative to give us stats on the judiciary side? Can we get that? Is anybody in here?
What you
From
mean?
that side, like
what's-
stats on, repeated offenders, just the stats of cases and things of that sort. Is there any type of information and data we can get from that? Because I love this.
That exists. Just finding the right person who's willing to come talk to us about it is.
That's willing to come.
Yeah.
Well, and
They exist.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
I'm
you
sorry.
off. I got busy today, but I intended to pull up, and I'll get you data from the Department of Juvenile Justice Data Resource Guide, because that will show the most recent stats for the juvenile system, and it's public information, so anybody who's interested in looking at it.
I think it'd be great. The same way Chief comes and gives his updates, we could get someone from that side to come give an update quarterly or, whenever we have ours. I think it'd be great also.
So you mean from an age standpoint?
So like, would that come through the Commonwealth Attorney's
Not necessarily
Office?
just age.
I'm kind of out of where it would come from, but like you said, we can see, what's juvenile versus, adults and things of that sort, and then we really start.
I honestly think that what the chief is able to pull from his system is going to match, as someone who's worked in the juvenile justice system, is going to match up with what we would see on the judicial side. I think the tricky part is the juvenile stuff, and the data resource guide breaks down a lot of information. There's a deep dive there. And the other piece that's important to me is the victimization. I think that if we can stop victimization, then we can then stop offending. So those are some things that I'm interested in making sure that we pull data for next time. And school stuff too. That's another piece, because I've been looking at our chronic truancy issues in the city, and we know that truancy leads directly to offending. So we'll work together and see if we can pull some of that stuff so we can send it out before the next meeting.
I like that.
Great. All right. I will pass to Ms. Matthews for some announcements.
Yes. So just keep it on your radar. We do have a joint meeting on June 9th. I'm going to remind everyone about Chief Forum this Wednesday at 6 p.m. at 206 High Street. Connect Fest is on Wednesday as well. From 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. we'll be in Dale's home. I'm sorry?
It says 601 Broad Street.
I didn't send the invite out, so I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
But it's at Dale's home this Wednesday, and we have another Connect Fest. I'll send the email out for that one as well next Wednesday in Port Norfolk, 3 to 6 as well. Are there any other announcements for the greater cause?
So I have, I'm sorry, the 23rd, and it's the Google one from Sonia. This week is saying it's Broad Street, and then on the 30th it's saying it's Dale home.
Okay, so maybe my invite, maybe the one I have is inverted or something. I'm not sure. Okay, so say that again. The one you have for
the 23rd is 601 Broad. It says Port Norfolk, and then the one on the 30th has Dale home.
Yes, so my apologies. The one on the 23rd, the one this Wednesday, we will be in Port Norfolk, and then on the 30th we'll be in Dale's home. Thank you.
Right. Ms. Matthews, could you send that out to the rest of everyone?
I'll send it out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
My only question is, I appreciate that we're going to send it out, but if we can't access our email to get it, how do we resolve that?
I'm going to start sending things. I'm going to get with IT to figure out what we can do. I don't know if they
You have access to your email tomorrow.
Okay.
Via the app or web-based?
Whatever.
Thanks, Mr. Carter.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the same issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Any other questions?
So I will send that out.
Thank you.
Everybody has been assigned email address? I just need
Except for our new task force member, George DeGroat. He needs an email address.
Will you send me that name then?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
But I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Our next meeting will be held on Monday, May 5th, so just, 2 weeks from today. And I'll be looking forward to seeing all of you there. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Meeting adjourned.